Hello again, everybody, and welcome to this week's special episode of Freeform Friday that will be mutually assured destruction. Joining me today is my guest, none other than Bryan Clark, otherwise known as Atom Bomb, the Night Stalker, and one half of the three-time WCW Tag Team Champions alongside Bryan Crush Clark. What's going on, sir? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Having a great time here in Montreal. It's been amazing 2 days, and we're still rolling, man. It's good. Good times.
Oh, my first question to you is about the man that broke you into the business, Ox Baker, who had a reputation for being a very, very kind-hearted person in addition to being excellent on the microphone. Can you speak to either or both of those attributes?
Both are true. Sweetheart of a guy, and as far as his look and his demeanor and appearance as he was in the ring was almost one of a kind. He was the guy that when he walked into a restaurant or an arena, people recognized him, and he just looked fearsome. Again, great look, and his work. Again, I'll tell you, I love him to death, but his work was not. He was not a technician by any means. He was more of a brawler. But again, the look and stuff carried him so far in his career, all the way up until a movie he did with Kurt Russell, a movie called Escape from New York, where he was like the lead heel in that movie. So yeah, an amazing look. Did really well in Florida, I think New Zealand, Australia, international star. Yeah.
And of course, you had a brief stint in the AWA. And did you have any significant interactions with, say, Greg Gagne or the living legends Larry Zbyszko during your brief time there in the AWA with Ox Baker?
That situation, I was still in college. A lot of people may or may not know this, but I was still playing college football at the time. And so if you look at it, I don't even know if it was illegal to actually be in pro wrestling and playing college football, but I was. I met Ox during one of the off seasons in the Missouri area, Kansas City area. I played at Central Missouri State, played football there, and a big wrestling fan my whole life. And so I met Ox, and he sort of introduced me to the business and got me on a few shows, but I still hadn't been trained. I really didn't get trained until I graduated college and moved to Atlanta. But I'm sure this story will take us there. But yeah, there were a few places that I so-called worked, but still hadn't been really trained other than just talking to Ox. And of course, you know, wrestling is a lot more than just talking. So, but yeah, to answer your question, great guy.
And now we're going to jump over to your time in WCW
Right.
before the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
Did it have any significance for you after missing your tag team match at Starrcade 1990 versus Sid and Dan Spivey, the Skyscrapers, to then team with Rick Steiner, who was substituting for Scott Hall in the Random Lethal Lottery tag team competition at Starrcade 91 in the loss to Big Van Vader and Mr. Hughes?
Right. During that time, I had already finished college and finished up my football career and moved to the Atlanta area. The man that trained me, Jody Hamilton, ran it. It wasn't even a power plant. It was actually an old carpet warehouse and a couple of rings in it, and had Sarge Dwayne Bruce, who was the trainer, and also Jody Hamilton. And on a handshake, Jody invited me down, did not charge me anything, just looked at my size and my ability and says he thought he could do something with me. And a blessing to Jody that he thankfully that he gave me that offer. And so during that time frame, I was inserted into a couple of matches, still green as grass, learning my way, learning my craft. You know, I'm still working independents in the area in the Southeast. And so, yeah, that Starrcade stuff with Vader and those, I was still, again, so green, really just learning my way, so to speak. Yeah.
And of course, you had a very successful stint in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Of course, that's achieved somewhat legendary cult-like status nowadays. and you were the Beat the Champ TV title holder early in 1993. Did
Yeah.
it feel unusual or uncomfortable to put over the much smaller, say, the likes of Tim Horner for the strap 6 days after you won it, and then again in subsequent rematches, so to speak?
Not at all. As far as that, again blessed to have worked for Jim Cornette. I love working for Jim. He was very supportive, very helpful to me. I got an invite um, from Jim Cornette to come work Smoky Mountain by way of Paul Orndorff, who I was working in the Southeast area. And so I came up. Jim invited me up and put me in a couple of matches. I did really well, and so Jim kept me, and I was very thankful for that. And as far as him putting the TV title on me, yeah, I was like, wow, this is great. You know, my first real achievement in the business. I think that a lot of people say, and I can have to check the records because I don't know, but I'm almost positive I won the TV title and lost it in the same day. And the reason I say that's because I think it was a TV taping. So it would air 6 days later that I lost it. But technically, I might have been a transitional champ, so to speak. So I think I may have won and lost it the same day. But either way, for me to be able to win that just told me that Jim had enough confidence in me that, hey, I can do something. I can trust this guy. I can, I can work with him. And again, very thankful to Jim Cornette for giving me that opportunity and helping me. Yeah.
Also, during your time in Smoky Mountain, what do you remember of the late Kevin Sullivan? Or if you have any great stories to share, of course, he having managed and teamed with you in Smoky Mountain before turning against you and working some matches with you.
Yeah. Kevin Sullivan, a brilliant mind in this business. And we recently lost him, and that's very sad. Kevin was very helpful to me in my career at Smoky Mountain. I was, again, lucky and blessed to have him as my manager. He always really helped me out as far as interviews and, my placement and what I was doing and how we were doing it and a lot of the psychology behind it. So, yeah, Kevin was very, very helpful in my career also.
And also, during your time in Smoky Mountain, you met one Bryan Lee, who would go on to become the Underfaker,
Yeah.
and also later be known as Chains, as a member of the Disciples of Apocalypse with
Right.
Crush. What do you remember of him? And did you think then that he'd go on to the WWF runs that he had? And what was he like to work with back then?
Really, really easy to work with. I worked him a few times. I don't remember exactly how long or a program or anything. We did have an angle with him. I remember Kevin and I were doing some stuff and put him out of action, so to speak, for a little while, and then he came back and he worked Kevin also. Yeah, I didn't know that he would. I knew he would become the Undertaker, the fake Undertaker, but at the time, you didn't really know where people were going to end up. It just was hard to say. And I think I got called up before he did. But yeah, no problems. Bryan was easy to work with. Yeah, no doubt.
And moving on to your WWF run, of course, when you first debuted as Adam Bomb, you were paired up with Scott Levy, who would later go on to be Raven.
Right.
And at that time, he was known as Johnny Polo. And he has a reputation as one of the most notorious partiers of his era. Did you ever see that type of behavior when you were paired with him, or not really, or did you not really travel or socialize with him much when you were paired together?
No, we traveled together. And I didn't party that much. I mean, I was more the guy that I didn't stay out late at night or anything like that. And he may have. I don't really know his whole party habit. I just know I can speak for myself is that I was always the gym rat, I guess, so to speak. That's just even to this day I still do my training and stuff. So yeah, I knew that that 6 a.m. flight was coming. I needed my sleep. I needed to get my meals in me, and I had to work out and those type of things. So I was really focused on that part. Yeah.
And also, you as well and Bam Bam Bigelow ended up teaming a few times to challenge the also Johnny Polo managed Quebecers, filling in for the injured Steiner brothers, including a match at Madison Square Garden. What was the crowd like during this intriguing heel versus heel battle, which the WWF rarely ever did?
Yeah, I don't recall anything special about the match. If anything, probably the fans really didn't know what to think about it with the heel versus heel team. So I don't really think they got the reaction, or we got the reaction that we wanted or we were looking for, as I recall. I don't really remember anything special about it.
Okay, so it's just another day at the office.
Well, yeah, because it was, again, a heel versus heel, and that's sort of different for the fans to accept, at least at that time, to see it at least.
And of course, you were in the battle royal. You were in that battle royal to determine a new intercontinental champion. Of course, you ended up getting eliminated, and Rick Martel and Razor Ramon would be the final two. What were your memories of that particular match or that particular time?
I don't really recall a whole lot of the match, honestly. I couldn't even tell you how many people were in it. But if you say that were the final two, I believe you. I just don't, I don't remember a ton about it, but yeah.
And since you're in Montreal, can you talk about how you got along with the Quebec guys in the locker room, such as Rick Martel, Jacques Rougeau, and Pierre-Carl Ouellet?
Always excellent. Love those guys. Everyone you mentioned. Really good friends with PCO. Still stay in touch with him to this day. Just a great guy, great human being, and love him to death. And enjoyed even Tiger Jackson, Rick Martel, Jacques, everybody that you mentioned. Top shelf guys, no doubt. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in Montreal. That's just the truth.
When given the choice between gimmicks to go with upon signing with the WWF, one you've said was the Ringmaster, which of course went to Stone Cold Steve Austin more than 2 years later.
Yeah.
Do you think it might have altered the trajectory of Steve's career had you been the Ringmaster in '93?
No, I just think it was, and people, they will sort of question me on this, and I just say, just go look at the trademark history of it. Back in those days, that era, they trademarked a lot of different names, and that was the name, the Ringmaster, they had trademarked along with Adam Bomb, and there was one military type gimmick too, because I'm a veteran, I'm a former military, and they try to line up what you're really like to a character, and Ringmaster was one of the choices, and people like, I'm not going to argue about it. I know what was sent to me. I got the paperwork. But either way, I didn't choose that. I chose Adam Bomb. I felt it. I didn't like the whole Ringmaster gimmick, the idea and the concept of it, the drawings of it. Whereas the Adam Bomb character had a lot of different things that I could work with. I felt it being a monster type heel that had survived a nuclear accident at 3 Mile Island. There was just a lot of that mentally, and I could visualize a lot that could go with it. So that's why I chose that one. Yeah. I don't think it would have changed anyone's career. I don't think Steve liked it when he did it, and I don't think I would have liked it if I had chosen it.
Also, in 1993, was there ever any thought or talk of which you're aware of teaming you with Bryan Adams when Crush had turned heel and joined Mr. Fuji's stable in October of 1993?
Never any talk of that. No.
What do you recall of being around Lex Luger, both in the early days of WCW and then later in the WWF during his patriotic babyface run?
Always got along with Lex. Even early in his career, I trained at his gym. He had 2 locations in Atlanta. I was living in the Atlanta area. It was called Main Event Fitness in Atlanta, and great facility, both places, both locations. Lex and Sting owned both of those gyms. So I trained there, so I would see Lex. So I got to meet Lex early in my career. And yeah, I always got along with him, and still do. Yeah.
Can you talk about any in-ring, out-of-the-ring experiences you may have had with the always colorful and controversial Marty Jannetty, Also, given that you battled him in the ring at the 1993 Survivor Series and in singles competition at the time.
Nothing controversy wise with Marty. Always got along with Marty. His nickname was Party Marty, and I've always liked Marty. Always gotten along with him really well. So yeah, but yeah, he definitely liked to party. That was just his gimmick, and he lived it to, still now. But a really good guy.
When you turned babyface in 1994, you battled fellow Harvey Whippleman stablemate Quang, later known as Savio Vega. What were your thoughts on working with the future Savio and your perceptions of him in general?
Love him. Great talent and a great guy in the ring and out of the ring. Always willing to work hard. And no matter what gimmick he was working, whether it be Quang or whether it be Savio, just an all-around really good guy.
And in 1995, you worked a series of house show bouts with King Kong Bundy. Did you get to know the late gentleman during this time? And did you get along with him in general?
Yes, absolutely. We did some international tours, and I worked with Bundy. He was hilarious. People, I don't know if that, of course, it didn't come across on camera because he was a monster type heel on television, but behind the scenes, just absolutely classically funny. King of the one-liners, man. He would zing anybody. Didn't care who, Hogan on down. Didn't matter. Bundy was very funny, and I remember a trip to the Philippines, man. The whole trip, he just had me just really just hilarious. Great guy.
Do you recall any of those zingers or one-liners that stood out?
Nothing, not any particular one. But again, no one was off limits from Hogan on down. He didn't care. He would pop anybody with him. Mike Shaw, who was another guy. I don't know if Mike, if you guys remember him or not. He worked as Bastion Booger. I don't know if he was Canadian or not. I think he might have been Michigan guy. But he's another one that was great with the zingers and the one-liners. And Owen Hart, also another funny one with those. But I can't think of one particular story from Bundy. Just know that he was always very funny. Yeah, and I love working with him.
And in 95, you battled Shawn Michaels on an episode of The Action Zone a week before WrestleMania 11 in 95. Did you realize that he was a mere year away from being the man who would be given the ball to carry the WWF?
Hard to say if I would have realized that. I don't know, because we had a lot of heavyweights that were like super heavyweights with Yoko, but there was also Bret Hart there who had really carried the ball and proved himself. So it's just hard to say. It's hard to say which way, which direction they're going to go with talent. I think it all depends on a lot of things, whether it be if they can trust the guy, if the guy's healthy, if the guy's durable, if that's what they're looking for at the time. The booking is always, it seems, fluid, and it could switch, and they have to be that way. So yeah, hard to say. If I don't think I knew that, but it was a possibility. Yeah.
And pivoting back to the AWA, you were briefly acquainted with Eric Bischoff at the start of your career.
Right.
Can you say something about your early experiences with Eric Bischoff and when you rejoined WCW and became part of the Blood Runs Cold concept in 97?
Right. Yeah, I was, like I said, back in the days I met him in AWA. I was still in college playing football, but I did meet Eric briefly in AWA, the closing hour, so to speak, of that company. But yes, I did reconnect with Eric and sign my first 3-year deal with WCW. I always had a great relationship with Eric, and I love working for him. And hands down, the best guy to work for. Always was very open and receptive to conversations of where we're heading with my character, whether it be just direction of what we're doing, and also the end game. What's the end point for the character? Where is it going? And then also in contract negotiations and stuff, it was never like, stand in line, wait to be talked to. It wasn't like that. It was always very, very open. Yeah.
Well, you're one of very few people that have nice things to say about Eric Bischoff,
Well,
because you always hear the opposite.
well, again, and that could be true. But the thing is that every relationship is different. Like you and I talking, it's fine. But someone else could be sitting in this chair, and there may not be chemistry. There could be reasons that you do not get along. So there's always those variables. Every situation is different. Like my interactions with Vince versus someone else's. It's always different. It depends on time, what's going on with the company. So yeah, it always can vary.
How would you compare Vince McMahon and Eric Bischoff?
Um, to me, like again, there goes with the interaction thing. To me, night and day. Would much rather talk to Eric, and always had again the relationship we had, and easy to speak with, easy to work with, open to my ideas and concepts, everything from music to merchandising to A to Z. And I was very, very proactive as far as my merchandise, color scheme, just everything that has to do with merchandise. I always have been. For example, my new Wrestle Merch Central merch I have. Cheap plug there. But yeah, I just enjoyed working with Eric. I really did. It was, and I could not talk to Vince like I could with Eric. So completely different relationships.
And continuing with WCW, did you think the extremely high budget WCW devoted to the vignettes and ring introductions for Blood Runs Cold and Glacier in particular were justified, or even perhaps necessary to the Mortal Kombat themed faction getting over?
I think initially, yes, it was a good way to introduce someone. I just think they let it go too long. They could have cut it in half as far as the introduction time. But initially, it was working out. I mean, I personally, I got a deal with. I was on the Mortal Kombat TV series. It opened some doors for me in acting, which I've done over the years, movies and those type of things. So the introduction part of the characters could have been at a faster pace. But then again, you also had the NWO coming in, so there were so many factions coming in, so it sort of got watered down, and it may have taken away from it. But again, if it would be me, I would have put it on a little faster pace as far as the introduction.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid watching, and I was like, "Is something gonna happen? What's gonna happen?"
Yeah.
And your matches teaming with Chris Kanyon often seemed like the high octane highlights of most WCW programming outside of the cruiserweight bouts. Do you feel that you and Chris Kanyon upped your respective games at this time, or maybe even that your tag team re-energized both of your careers?
I think so. Yes. Yeah, we really worked at it. I mean, Chris was very innovative, and we weren't afraid to do stuff. Me being 6'6", 290, I would fly. I would do the top rope stuff from the inside to the outside. Everything. So, and Chris also very innovative with finishing moves. So it worked out, and I think it helped us both out. Yeah, Chris going under a hood and working his character. Yeah, he learned all the nuances of the Mortis character, and for me, it was pretty easy to work the Wrath character. So, yeah, I think we both benefited from it.
And of course, you both had James Vandenberg or Jim Mitchell as your manager. What do you remember of Father Jim Mitchell?
Vandy, oh Vandy, yeah, Vandenberg, Vandy. We called him Vandy. Yeah, man. I just talked to him a few weeks ago. I was getting him hooked up with a new action figure deal. Yeah, he good guy, very funny. Loved being around him. Yeah, he was very good on the mic. A really good interview. Very good. A good piece to go with Morris and Wrath. If that makes sense there. But yeah, I enjoyed having him around.
You had some great chemistry.
Yeah.
You had some great chemistry, and that was where I personally was first exposed to him, only to see him later in ECW.
Right. Correct. And I think he also worked in TNA, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And he was also part of a storyline where Raven got his head shaved. with sheep shears, and there was blood pouring out of his head.
I didn't see that one. Okay, I'll take your word for it.
When you were you highly aware of the WWF reversing the momentum of the Monday Night War with WCW by early '98, around the time of the involvement of Mike Tyson in an angle with Steve Austin? Did the atmosphere backstage at WCW change?
I'm sure were aware of it. They watched our product, we watched their product. As far as a shift, as far as the backstage and the crew, I don't think that we looked at it as oh, we're in trouble. I didn't personally. I can't speak for everybody else and what they thought and what their opinions were of it, but yeah, it was a big thing. But we had so many other things and so many huge stars. I mean, the battle was there. It wasn't going anywhere. That's the way it seemed to me.
How was your morale from 1999 to 2000 while recovering from and rehabilitating the torn ACL you suffered during a match with Jerry Flynn in the spring of '99?
Coming off the top rope, Orlando Civic Center. It's amazing how you remember the city and the arena. Yeah, tore the ACL, but I was very disappointed in that. I actually had a movie role coming up, part in Gladiator. I was supposed to go to Morocco for 18 weeks to film that. So that went out the window along with being on the shelf for 9 months or so. Yeah, then I rehabbed and worked my way back into coming back. Yeah, it was disappointing. So like I said, I worked hard. I really worked hard to recover that, and I went back to my high flying ways. I got back on the bike, so to speak, as they say, and right back on the top rope and doing what I was doing. So yeah, I recovered.
When you began the Kronik tag team with Bryan Adams in 2000, did you feel WCW was getting out of control in terms of management changes and the rapid fire creation and dropping of angles and factions at that time?
There was a difference you could tell, but when you're in a tag team there, and I say this with modesty, is that I think we got over instantly as Kronik, Bryan Adams, Brian Clark, Kronik. We got over really quick, and so we were so focused on what we were doing, we didn't really pay attention to everything that was around us as far as what angles were getting dropped and what was happening. I just know that we were on a really hot climb very fast, ending up being 3-time world champs and 2-time WCW and then All Japan later. But yeah, we didn't really. I don't mean by we didn't pay attention to. We were aware of what was going on, but we were really, when you're so focused and you put so much time and energy into your character, that's what we were really focused on. But yeah, there was definitely there was a decline. There were things that could have been done differently as we look back on it.
Can you describe your feelings about your tag team title success in All Japan Pro Wrestling and the differences between wrestling in Japan versus North America?
Absolutely the highlight of our career. Growing up as a kid, I was a huge Stan Hansen fan. Loved him. I actually talked to him a couple months ago. Wished him happy birthday, and just a great guy, an absolute legend in Japan. And for us to go over in All Japan, and I would pin the Great Muta, and we would get the victory and be the 47th team of all time to win the All Japan Championships. And then to top it off, the man who was on an ambassador tour, none other than Stan Hansen, would present us with the titles and the trophy. Doesn't get any better than that.
And you have a special affinity for Stan the Lariat Hansen and his legendary status in Japan as a preeminent American superstar there. Did you feel he ever got the respect or recognition deserved in the United States for that?
No. And I know he worked different times in WCW and different angles. But the thing is that Stan had such a great deal financially in Japan. And he would go and work so many weeks out of the year and then come home and be off. It was a sacrifice he made, I'm sure, to leave his family and then to go over to work that hard, because it was a grinding, tough schedule also, and his style was second to none. And so I think, yeah, I just think that he decided that what was best for him and his family is for him to work Japan. So, yeah, I know he got inducted to the Hall of Fame, so very thankful for that. Much deserved. Yeah.
Could you describe how the whole concept started of returning to the WWF in 2001 for a brief stint, teaming with Bryan as Kronik, with Stevie Richards as your manager, and how did this all come about, and where do you think that it all went sideways?
Well, we were off after the company was bought, and we had guaranteed contracts, so we were still getting paid for another year after the company was sold. And when our contracts were up, Bryan was good friends with Taker also, and so I think they had made contact about us coming in, and Bryan asked me about it, and we're a team, so we always decided things together. We had our entire career; this would be no different. My thoughts and my mindset was, let's go to Japan. I always wanted to finish up my career in Japan. So we ended up we talked about it for weeks and weeks, and we trained and got as ready as possible. We still needed more time, but we got ready, and they brought us in. And I think we did 2 squash matches, I think, and then we were hot shotted into a pay-per-view, which in my mind was a bad idea, for the fact that I even made suggestions to the agents, and hopefully that it would go up the chain of command and say, hey, look, we've been off for a year. Let us do some house shows, a couple of weeks of house shows, knock the rust off, get reacquainted with everything. Oh, no, you guys will be ready now. Let's do it now. And of course, it didn't go that way. And so we were hot shotted into the angle. And I don't think none of the 4, all of us were not healthy. And what I mean by that is, if you look back at the match, and the match sort of fell apart in a couple of places. Some places it was good, some places it fell apart. But if you look, and not placing blame on anyone, I'm just saying that there was, like, for example, Kane had a massive staph infection on his arm. He was trying to come back and recover from that. He should have been working with that huge of a staph infection. I think Taker was a little banged up. I know I had a neck issue. I would actually have neck surgery later. And I think Bryan either had shoulder or some back issues. Those things where if you really wanted to work that angle and build it, you should have built it a little more, let the guys get completely healthy, and then do it. That's my take on it. And so, yeah, I think that's why it just did not work out. It was rushed, and I don't think the chemistry was there.
And who were the agents at that time that came up with these ideas?
Ideas of
the idea of hot shotting, rushing it.
I'm guessing it would have to be Vince. I would say. I mean, he has the final say. So the agents are not going to say, "Okay, you're going to a pay-per-view." It was Vince's idea.
And when you came back to the WWF briefly in 2001, was there a big difference between how Vince McMahon's demeanor was in '93 versus 2001?
I would just have to say I think it was sort of the same. I never had a great relationship with him, even in '93, and then he may have been a little more distant. Like I said, I left WWE. He didn't leave me. I left because I knew I'd had enough. And the same thing with my partner Bryan. Bryan left also, so we both had left him. But I mean, hey, money's money, business is business, and we have families. We can't do this on his salary. We can't do the whole 290 plus days a year and be away from home for that little bit of money when we can go and work with Eric and make 5 times as much or more and be home a lot more. So, I mean, it's a common sense, the injuries, no health care, it goes on and on. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I think he sort of the same as far as me personally. Again, everyone has a different experience, but mine personally was sort of the same.
And it's according to the rumor and innuendo, you were given the opportunity to go to OVW and you turned it down. Was that is there any validity to that?
I know that my partner Bryan went. I don't ever recall them telling me to go or asking me to go because I would not have went anyway. Just being honest, I would not have went. I would not have went. That's not an ego thing. That's just a fact of like, okay, I'm banged up. I've got some injuries to heal from. I'm not going to go to their training up in was Ohio or something. Is that where it's
It
at?
was in Louisville.
Yeah, I was not leaving my home in Atlanta to go do that. No.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had a guaranteed contract. I mean, I didn't have to do it, and I was just trying to be smart about it, and also take care of myself health wise. Yeah.
And tell me a bit about your career at post WWF from 2001, 2002 till about the time that you decided that it was time to hang up the boots and retire.
Yeah, we did. Like I said, we did a few tours of All Japan, which I loved it. I had some great experiences working with some great guys. And as I mentioned earlier, having Stan Hansen present us with the All Japan titles, and for me to pin the Great Muta with my finisher, the meltdown that was mine, and all just great, just blessed, man, for those pieces to fall together like that. So yeah, I'm very happy. I sort of knew when it was time. I knew probably that last tour of Japan, I felt my body just slowly breaking down. Again, I U.S. military veteran. I was in a combat unit, air base ground defense training, and then college football, powerlifting, and then 13 years pro wrestling. Your body's going to wear down eventually, and so I knew it was time. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and very lucky, very blessed to have had my career.
And what led to you getting started with your social media? Because as you mentioned during the Q&A last night, you're highly active on TikTok Mondays and Fridays. How did that all come about?
Um, Sort of organically, we started doing it. I have a team that helps me with it, does a lot of my production. I have a guy over in Limerick, Ireland. Shout out to Jonathan O'Dwyer, who helps me with a lot of my stuff. And we just started doing it, putting reels together and different pieces of my history and stuff. I think sooner or later we will go to your format, YouTube here down the line, possibly the next year. But right now it's real Bryan Clark on TikTok, and every Friday night, prior to 1 hour prior to SmackDown, and then Monday nights, 1 hour prior to Raw, we go live. We take questions. We talk to the fans. We're very interactive. It's a non-toxic, very friendly environment. We love talking pro wrestling, past, present, future, and we're all about breaking necks and cashing checks, man. we have fun with it every month. I do my 4th month in a row now. Coming up, we do a PLE giveaway where I give away merchandise. Doesn't cost the fans a dime. All they have to do is enter a contest each month, and I give the directions of what they got to do, and they can win signed autographed merchandise that shows up to their door. I've shipped to the UK. I've shipped to all over the US, and it's just growing, and it's organic. And again, people can follow me there, and it's rapid fire, and we have fun. And I have a lot of guests line up that would like to come on, but right now it's so hot and heavy right now that we're going to put those off down the line. But I'm sure we will have some great guests. I have a lot of connections in this business, lifelong friends, not just my era, but even the current era of guys that I talk to throughout social media. I'm on Real Bryan Clark on X, and on Instagram it's Bryan Clark 3X. So both of those, the X and TikTok, are Real Bryan Clark, and of course on Facebook at Bryan Clark. So.
And what are your thoughts on the current product as it is today with WWE and AEW and TNA wrestling?
Okay. TNA, I try to watch it when I can because my buddy PCO is there, and he's just a machine. He's done amazing. Love the guy, and very proud of what he's done. He's just been amazing. His longevity has been second to none. I can't think of anybody that's done what he's done. Full disclosure on AEW, I watched very little of it. There's just so much wrestling on now, and my show is geared. The TikTok show live is geared towards the WWE product. So I watch a good bit of that, and I watch the PLEs, and we talk about them. We keep an eye on what's happening and what is going on. And for example, the Hell in a Cell match was amazing this past month, and there's been some great matches and some great storylines. And so, yeah, I'm definitely enjoying a lot of the current product. Yeah.
And I take it you were a big fan of the Hell in a Cell match that just went down at Bad Blood between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, that's the one I was speaking of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Stole the show, no doubt about it. And again, like I said, maybe match of the year candidate. So yeah. And I've always been a fan of Drew's work. He's like 6'5". I think he just has the look. You know, he's probably 275, and I like to see the bigger guys, the heavyweights. I like to see, even though he's in AEW, the Lance Archers of the world. You don't see a lot of big guys. I just recently contacted Bronson Reed on my social media on X, and so we've chit-chatted back and forth. But he's doing great. Great push. Great way to build him, and I think they need to do a little bit more of that. And of course, Braun Strowman, met him a couple of years ago in Dallas. Great guy, and love what they're doing with Steiner's kid, Braun Breaker. So yeah, man, really good. Future looks bright for a lot of these guys. Absolutely.
And we only have a few minutes left. So in closing, is there anything that you'd like to say to the fans of Montreal and the wrestling fans that you never got a chance to say?
First and foremost, I thank you so much. Blessings to everyone. I love all your support. It's been great. You guys have been phenomenal on social media. And the last few years, my whole career, you guys have been very supportive, and I am very thankful for that. I will tell you, no doubt about it. Here in Montreal, this trip has been great. We had a great turnout last night. Long line, a lot of people, autographs, photos. I mean, we had giveaways. Guys were dressed up as Adam Bomb. And, yeah, man, it was fun. We really had a great time and put up here first-class facilities. I was staying at a massive, beautiful hotel, my own swimming pool. The works, man. So it's been great. And, JF has been phenomenal and just been a great tour. And I'd like to do it again.
Well, we look forward to having you back in our great city anytime.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Much love to you guys.
And I want to thank you very much for the time that you've allotted for this interview.
Sure.
And thank you all for tuning in. Alan Greenberg and I will be back next week with our regularly scheduled programming. We go live on StreamYard, and we will connect via Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Hopefully, God willing, all things work out and we do not run into any technical difficulties. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care of yourselves and each other. Love one another. Or if you want to be nasty, in the immortal words of Jim Cornette, thank you, fuck you, bye.